Happy Monday, everyone. I have a new story for you. And this one is a personal account from author John Wester Anderson. And this is something that she experienced firsthand. And why it's so significant is because this story is what put her on the path of writing stories about angels and miracles. And if you want to check out her book, it's called, let me just check, Where Angels Walk. I hope you enjoy the story. In the words of John Anderson, being a person who is strongly spiritual, I had no bias against angels. It's just that I never really thought of them as getting involved in earth to the extent that I later learned they do. I felt that if you're going to pray, just go right to God. You don't need all that other intervention. And then my son, Tim, who at the time was 21 years old, had an experience that changed all of that for me. He was coming from Connecticut to Chicago to be with us at Christmas. And of course, my husband called the boys a few days before their journey began and said, "Don't come because the Midwest is going through this terrible temperature drop. The interstates were being closed because of the high winds were blowing the snow, and it was very dangerous." But of course, the kids kind of laughed. Weather warnings are for old people. 21 years old, they think they're invincible. They thought they can get through the mountains with no problem at all, and that's what they proceeded to do, except that their car broke down outside of Fort Wayne, Indiana, on one of these deserted access roads, 32 below zero. In the middle of the night, they just sat there on the side of the road with no place to run, no lights in the distance, and realized they were probably going to freeze to death. All of a sudden, as Tim described it to me, there was a tow truck there. They saw this flare of light behind them. They hadn't seen it approach. He was just there. The guy got out. He didn't seem surprised to see them. He hitched them, and without talking much, he took them to a place of safety in Fort Wayne. When they got out of the car and turned around to ask him how much the bill would be, there was no truck there. And there were no tracks on the snow leading away from where the boys were. When Tim told me that, I got goosebumps and I said, "Tim, I need to know what time that man came." Tim said, "Well, I know that for sure. It was 1:45 a.m. because I had just looked at my watch." Well, 1:45, I had been standing by the front window saying, "God, you've got to send someone. You have got to send someone to help the boys. It's Christmas. God, you've got to send someone." I don't normally give God orders, but I was just doing it with such intensity. That was 1:45, and of course, Tim was still on Eastern Standard Time. So I was left with the realization that at the very moment that I said, "God, you've got to send someone," he actually did. But who did he send? As a journalist, I knew the ways to research, and of course, I went back to the trail. And I had called the highway patrol, and they said no, they had no rescue vehicles out that night. That was before the days of cellular telephones, and so they would not allow any of their people to cruise the roads because they could have gotten into trouble. I called several tow trucks services in the area. They laughed at me. Why would a driver be leaving the safety of town on a bitterly cold and dangerous night? No, they had no calls. So the trail dried up, as I should have known that it would, because angels don't often leave calling cards. I love this story because although this is not an empirical proof for the existence of angels, It is so comforting to believe, to think that if we are in trouble, we can always call for that divine help and protection. And I don't know about you, but if I was in the same position as those boys, having faith in that will be the way to go, because in the Bible, in Psalms, it says God will command his angels to guard you in all your ways. So I choose to believe that I can always ask for help at all times. And given that today is Monday, the first day of the week, let that be your theme. Every day this week, when you wake up, entrust your day and your life to the divine guidance and protection of the universe, God, source, whatever it is that you feel comfortable calling this divine presence. And if you have a story with something that you cannot explain by conventional norms, I'd love to hear it in the comments of this video. So leave me a message. I hope that you have enjoyed the story. Remember to subscribe to my storytelling channel so that you get notified of incredible stories of hope and miracles. And I will see you next Monday. In the meantime, stay safe, stay grateful, and remember, there is divine protection and help available to us. So don't be afraid to ask. See you next week.